So there was a reason that Susan had to tell you about the bathroom, and that was my talk is next. And sorry about that. Tim is my co-investigator, et cetera, but you can blame this one on me, not Tim. Also Morley Mao and Eric Purpus and Don Stutzbach, et cetera. There's some research we've been doing for a while, which is the question is, what's the relationship between control plane, routing protocol, instability, and data plane, the packets getting there? And is the quantity of BGP updates good or bad? Do we want to see 0 BGP updates? Do we believe in static routing? No. So, we hear reports that the internet routing is fragile and collapsing. BGP is broken and isn't working well. Yesterday was a bad day on the internet. Look at all those announcements. Okay? If we change protocol X to protocol Y, it will improve routing. And we seem to measure routing dynamics and say that some measurement is worse or better than the other. By the way, I want to warn you, when some of the best computer scientists in the world are studying your networks as a behavioral phenomenon, you should be scared. You should be very scared. Okay, and I'm scared because I got feet on both sides of the fence. But what the heck are we measuring? We're told that a lot of BGP updates is internet instability, right? They show internet update counts, and they say it's unstable. There are too many updates, so BGP must be broken. I have another model. BGP updates are like white blood cells. They are actually signaling a problem, but they're part of the cure, not part of the problem. You cut a link, and there are going to be BGP announcements because of it. But they're trying to deal with it. They're trying to make the network heal. Okay? The BGP announcements aren't the problem. They're what we have today as a solution. Now, measuring them does give you some idea of the presence of a problem, but they are not a problem, and it's not necessarily broken. So when Andy shows you this graph, watch out, it's a log graph, so that's a very significant spike, and says, my God, look at the exponential growth. This is very bad, okay? If this is not bad, something bad happened. This is reacting to it and fixing it for you. Now, some warnings. The data I'm about to show is not exactly comparable to Andy's data. Andy's studying, he's looking at route views and looking at very big events. That was the code red event, okay? I'm going to look at single announcements. I'm pretty slow and stupid. And so seeing all this big stuff is very confusing to me. So we're not attacking Andy's assumptions or his measurements, but we suggest to consider some of them. And we're also measuring large-scale data plane performance. But what the heck is good routing? How can we say that this routing is better than that routing unless we have metrics? Okay? And we work on the assumption that the count of prefixes or speed or completeness are measures of routing quality. I don't think they are. I think the goal of the game is to get the packets to the customer. Okay? And the measures whether the user's packets reach their destination. If the user's packets are happy, the routing system is doing its job. And so I call it happy packets. And there are well-known metrics for data plane: delay, drop, jitter, and reordering, formally defined, and how to measure them is formally defined. So we're going to set out to measure the control plane quality by measuring the data plane. Are the customer's packets getting there? That's what we care about. That's what I'm being paid for as an ISP. Okay? But now one warning is router scaling. Of course, if it takes jillions of BGP announcements, so many that the router starts to fall over, then that's too many BGP announcements. But if BGP's chattiness is under Moore's law, then the hardware vendors and the Internet Vendor Task Force will keep up with us. Okay? And we think it scales under Moore's law. So, why I'm trying to look at single announcements. This is from something Tim did called What's the Sound of One Route Flapping? And if I think of a router as a BGP speaker that takes some announcements in and withdrawals, an announcement and a withdrawal, and emits something, and and I look at the top. In this simple 5-router configuration, one announcement and one withdrawal can produce 52 different possible results at the bottom. And these are actually seen. So if I'm sitting here looking at the bottom, trying to understand what actually happened, there's not much hope. So we're trying to look at things very simply, and this is the experiment we set up. We've got something called a BGP beacon, which I'll explain in a minute, which is dual home to the internet, and out on the internet we have a bunch of, it's announcing a prefix. And out on the internet we've got a bunch of packet streams coming towards that prefix. So there's the data plane, and there's the control plane. And what the BGP beacon is just something that takes a prefix, in this case it's this prefix, and announces it dual home to the internet and withdraws it at well-known times. Every 2 hours. We had to go to 2 hours because route flag damping caught us at 1. I think Morley talked about that in Eugene, right? And this is actually because it's a dual home beacon, looks more like this. Let's start here and at midnight, just before midnight, it's announcing to provider A and provider B. At midnight, it cuts the link to provider B. It makes believe that a multi-home site has lost one of its links. Okay? 2 hours later, it restores the link. 2 hours later, it cuts the link again, etc., etc. Okay? So during the day, it cycles to all these silly states, but what's interesting is it cuts one link and cuts the other link. And now comes the sexy part. If I can remember how to do this on Windows, I can show it to you. Yes. Ooh, but it changed scale. This is horrible. Oh, it had to shrink to fit on this tube. But anyway, this is something that the guys at University of Rome did. This is the origin of the beacon. You can now see it and turning on the announcement to 2914. This is from route views data. Here's its two homes, 1239 and 2914. It just withdrew from 2914, and so 2914 is getting it all from 1239. Okay, and now it's cut 1239, and you're seeing everybody lose their prefixes. 2914 gave up early. Now it starts announcing to 1239 again. Okay. For those who do not want to continue to hear me talk, go to bgplay.routeviews.org, and you can play with this yourself. Give it any prefix, etc. But so that's the routing beacon making its announcements. Okay, and now I have to keep you more amused than this. Okay, that's real, runs off routing views data, etc., etc. Okay. There's one for RIPE too. So the packet stream sources for the experiment heading towards those beacons, there's something called PlanetLabs. Now it's on research networks all over the world and some commercial networks. There are about 370 nodes and about 155 sites, mostly toward RNE network. There's its URL. But there are all these hosts out there, and you can conduct distributed experiments. So we have something running on many of those hosts, and we switch which hosts, streaming data towards the beacon. And the beacon, and it's sending it at fixed intervals, 50 microseconds, it's taking trace routes, all the normal measurement garbage. What do we see? Here's a transition from providers A and B, and the link to A is cut. Here is the change in delay for that source. There is no change. Boring. Well, of course, what happened was this provider preferred provider B in the first place. Cut the link to provider A, nothing changes. Half the world's networks were unaffected by that cut. Okay? We look at the other side, another case. This time we're going to take the same node and we cut provider B, and they have to switch providers. And now we saw some background delays happening, and then we see this gap, okay, where they've actually, packets are being dropped. You can see the drops up here. Okay, so we went from that, no drops, to drops up the yin-yang. And we can focus in on that and zoom it. Okay, these are reorders, by the way. There's no reordering. We've got drops. You can't see it well, but there's a line here and a line here, and we're measuring the length of time there was packet drop. Okay, and where we're going is we're going to try to find a correlation between the length of time there is packet drop and the BGP noise. Because if you're looking at BGP noise and saying that says the internet is sick, then it should be correlated with packet drop. Okay, here's a more interesting case. We see a number of these where there's islands of packets getting through in the middle. And we believe, and we have some evidence, but not enough yet, to show that these are large intermediate ASs converging. And so the traffic gets there by, going around a side path. Okay? So, this is just a bunch of them together, and there's some really anomalous ones, right? And some crazy ones. So, there's all sorts of data. Everything isn't as clean as just those couple I've shown you. Here's a zoom in on that garbage. Here's just something else. Somebody's delay is sloping down for a whole bunch of nodes continually, is getting better. The event happens in here. It affects this node, not the rest of them. But it seems to affect this node too, right? Which gets much noisier. Okay, and we've got all these graphs. So, unfortunately, the projectors on this side seem slightly skewed, so you can't see the left axis label. That's the CDF of the packet loss. And we see the number of BGP updates in blue, the duration of loss in red, and the amount of time that BGP was talking about it in green. And here we see that was in a transition from AB to A. In other words, we cut link B, here's cutting link A. Nothing very exciting. Here is restoring A. In other words, only B was connected, now we connect up A. And this is the total loss during all interesting beacon events. Okay? When we go to look and we show the duration of BGP noise and the duration of packet loss, if we expected a correlation, we'd expect something that looked like a line, a sloped line in there. We are not seeing correlation. Okay? Again, loss during a single transition of AB to B, cutting link A. Okay? During all beacon events, update duration. loss duration, and the count of BGP events. Okay? Not very exciting. Now, one warning is, what we're trying to do is take the same view of life that Andy and everybody else is taking, which is looking at route views. We cannot get the direct routing information that each of the source nodes is seeing. And we're conducting that experiment now. So we're just taking general routing information. But the same thing everybody else is using. So we're just trying to see if the noise that they're seeing correlates to actual things that affect your customers. Okay? This is that kinky customer, right? They cut their link to A, and look at what happens to them. We actually went and investigated, and that's not a PlanetLab's node, that's a RON node. The MIT routing overlay experiment, and I don't think it's really routing overlays causing that. That's a 30-second tick, by the way. The ISP concern thinks that may have something to do with his radio modem backup. So, okay, and here's a zoom in on that, those 30-second ticks. God knows. It's just kinky. Okay, more noise of that. Okay, we tried to look at the loss rates preferring ISP-B when we cut the link to ISP-B for where they are in the world. So Australia, normally has this. After you cut out, after the change, it has that. Their loss rate improved. They normally preferred a lossier provider. Okay? For everybody else, a number of them, look at them. They improve after the routing change. Right? Here, we do the same thing. These are the sites preferring preferring B after you restore B. And that guy gets worse, these guys stay the same, et cetera, et cetera. Russia, of course, you can tell they've got overloaded links and congestion. They respond to any change. Preferring B on the transition to just B, of course, things are better afterwards. Preferring B and restoring A, et cetera, all transitions. Okay, the correlation between loss rate and the AS hop count. Okay, this is the loss rate during the routing change and the hop count to the stable path, the preferred path. And if the hop count goes up, you'd expect the loss rate to correlate. You're looking for this. You're not seeing it. Same between loss rate and router hop count as opposed to AS hop count. That was AS hop count. This is router hop count. Seeing a little there, but that kind of makes it okay. So what this seems to say, those last couple, is distant sites experience more loss. Surprise. There's a correlation between a site's routing preference and the type of transition. In other words, sites which prefer A have more loss rate when A is cut than when B is cut, and the reverse is true. Brilliant. This is obvious. Okay. The correlation between loss rate and AS and router hop count is weak at best. Okay. At some sites, the loss rate during normal periods is higher than that during routing change periods. Maybe BGP noise improves delay. Don't think so, huh? Okie doke. Some references. Thanks to NSF, University of Oregon, UMich, where Morley is, IIJ, who pays my salary, silly people, et cetera, et cetera. And don't panic.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions? We have some extra time here.
That was pretty quick.
No one. Okay. Well, thank you.